It's off exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
Let's do it for real. Sorry, boys. Pierce told some stories. I've repeated myself a couple times.
Really set the mood here.
I think we've all told a couple stories at this point, but
Yeah.
here we go.
Let's do it.
We're back.
I appreciate all you guys.
Welcome back.
And let's do all of us part 2 on the pod. Let's do another topic like we did last time. Let's talk today just about owning a training style gym like this, growing it, scaling it over the years. What started as just Dan and I, and 2017. Yeah, I remember I was in Boston, and my wife was like, "Hey, I think we're gonna move back to New York. I just applied for a job, and now's probably the time to go for starting the gym." And I remember I met with Mike Reinold, who was one of my mentors in Boston, and was like, "Hey, Mike, I'm thinking about doing this." Just kind of picked his brain, like, what are the best ways to go about this? Would you recommend going solo? Would you recommend a business partner?
Did you have a notebook like Pierce did when he was in your office?
Oh, no, I do notes in my phone.
You're like Drake. If you had a BlackBerry, you'd be BlackBerrying it?
I never had a BlackBerry. Did any of you guys have one?
I had one.
I had the MV Touch or whatever, MV2 flip
Yeah,
phone.
the Envy was the GOAT.
I had the BlackBerry Storm. It was a touch screen.
What?
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
one.
The screen actually clicked. It wasn't like...
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah,
I think
Sam
the
had
BlackBerry,
that.
my thumb would click 5 letters at the same time.
Yeah,
I think I had to do T9. Would it click back? I don't think there's no way.
T9.
Yo,
Touch
T9
things
was the
multiple
GOAT.
times.
T9 was
Felt
like,
like a
boom, boom, boom,
beast.
boom, 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 done.
Yeah.
I'm a texting genius.
Yeah.
But I remember talking with Mike, and then kind of the first thing I filtered through was like, with my anxiety levels, there's no way I want to go through this solo. I think my marriage would have been done real quick if I did this solo.
That would have been a lot. That would have been a lot.
Yeah, just because I'd be bouncing, which I've gotten better at maybe, but bouncing everything off Sam. So yeah, from there I was like, well, I know Dan's back there doing it, and we were friends in college. And then I don't even know, Dan, how did I first approach you about it? Did we video call?
Well, yeah. So at one point I was.
We're talking. This is
so
probably what,
obviously-
like Thanksgiving time,
It
2017.
was before Thanksgiving, and we had connected a few times recently. I was trying to do more with the baseball side of things, and so I was trying to I was picking your brain on some stuff, is like programming wise, and so we had set up a couple of video calls just talking about that, and just kind of like generally like how to go about approaching training baseball players and stuff like that. And then we had a call scheduled, and to talk about that stuff. And then we never actually talked about it because you told me that you're coming back to New York and that you were going to try and start your own facility. And you asked me if I would be, if I was interested in something like that. And I was like, yeah. I didn't even think about it. I don't think I thought about it or asked my wife. But to be fair, we weren't married at the time or engaged. So
therefore, you didn't necessarily need to, but probably would have been a good idea.
no, but if she's listening, yeah, I said yes right away. But yeah, and then the next weekend, I think you were out here when we were looking for places.
Yeah,
Just about.
Yeah, I think I would drive back. I'd see clients in the morning on Friday in Boston, and I think you would do the same here.
Yep.
And we would drive back, and I had a notebook, and we would go to Dan's parents, and we would just make notes. We would drive around. We would look at spaces. We would game plan things. Yeah, I think I just knew I wanted to do this type of facility. I had seen the Cressies, the Champions, the Boyles out in Boston for how they run with like this kind of, smaller semi-private group training. Yeah, because you have to put the commercial gyms aside. They're one thing.
Their own thing.
They're their own thing. But like in this kind of training gym realm, I feel like you have 3 kind of sectors. You have like your personal training, your one-on-ones. You have your larger group, so like your Orange Theory,
metabolic,
your
burn boot camps.
Yeah, and then you have the semi-private, smaller group, kind of customized programming, which I just felt like fit my personality or our personalities more. I couldn't imagine myself kind of running and leading this giant group all day.
No, and I had done some like semi-private style classes when I was working in the commercial setting, but it's a hard place to do that because anyone can jump in. You have no background on like where they're at injury wise or what their history is. So you would get into in a commercial setting. They tried to do these semi-private groups, but it's not customized, and you have no idea what you're getting into.
Well, I think
with
the
those
trouble
people.
in what you see is people trying to blend models, and you almost
Right.
can't. We tried to do that early on.
We did.
Remember, we tried to have like a group class early on, and then COVID stopped that because when we shrunk down capacities, we needed more room for our semi-private members.
Mm-hmm.
But that group thing never took off because we were just trying to like do too much. It was confusing to the consumer.
And that's a big thing too, is like keeping it simple for the consumer and for the people running the business. Like, if you want it to be profitable and make it easy for you to get members, like the simpler it is for members to understand what you're offering, the easier it's going to be. Whereas if they're like, oh, is this a Orange Theory type gym, like a CrossFit type gym, or is this like small group, or is it personal training? Like what do we want it to be clear and concise. So that, I think that's where you guys have done a good job with the COVID stuff, and then cutting out the like big, large group adult class time and making it just all small group training.
And when we first kind of came into this area too, there was no one doing that, to my knowledge, really what we were trying to do and what we ended up doing.
Right.
Now I think there's probably a few places with a similar model, but there definitely wasn't anyone doing what we were doing at the time in this area.
That's how I came across it.
Well, it's fun. That's kind of how we all. I mean, obviously, I knew Paul from growing up, Dan from college, but yeah, that's how you two, Pierce and Connor, came. You guys both worked out here. Pierce, you were in that first Dutchman group we had during the summers, and then Connor, you trained here.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was at 19. I think it was. It was just.
Yeah, it was
prior
right
to
before
COVID.
COVID, right?
Yeah, so it wasn't too far after you guys started. But yeah, that was basically what you're looking for, was having that identity, and that's what you guys own so well, was being able to work into that niche of that semi-private, having understanding of your athletes and creating the programming and then just growing it from there. But that's kind of what appealed to me the most, was having that type of experience to learn, to get different movement patterns understood and have a program that fit me and what I was looking for was the best. But yeah, that's how I came across. This is for a lot of people that we just didn't have it locally, and this is, when you guys dropped this in, this is exactly what was needed.
Yeah. Yeah, and because you were in school for education, Pierce. When did your brain start to click as like, oh, I think this may be something I want to do?
Probably when I started the pitching side of things, to be honest with you, because I was in the classroom every day. I graduated, I was still, I got my master's degree. So like even post undergrad, it's like I'm still in the classroom every day. I'm still set out to be teaching, a teacher and stuff like that. And then once, like I said, I got employed on the pitching side of things and was here more often and saw more, and there was no opportunities at that time. It was just kind of like, hey, like this is just pitching, strictly pitching. I love that side of it. I love what I saw. Obviously, on my career side of things, just being here helped me out so much. And I love what in terms of the training for myself was great. So later on, obviously we talked about how eventually you're like, hey, what about this guy in terms of, getting certified and going through, all that and becoming a coach on the floor. I think that was a big, I was scared at first because like I said, didn't have a big background in it. But once I went through the certification and kind of got my feet underneath me, and teaching's very similar in ways where, classroom management, weight room management, you have programs, you have lesson planning. It's like, so I already had that skill set kind of built up already. It just wasn't in the, fitness industry level. I think just, like I said, once I was part-time working on the floor, I just learned more and more, and I just really bought into it, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I was going to say, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say the reps is what matters, right?
Yeah.
Once you got those reps in, like your confidence grows, and like, we see you out there, and just the difference from you now compared to obviously where you were when you first became the coach. And like when you first became a coach, it was like, we were like, oh shit, we're really busy. We need another body on the floor. And Mike, I remember Mike going like, hey, can you and Dan like brainstorm some ideas of like what we can do like to make this easier on us as far as coaching goes and more efficient. And then Dan and I are sitting there bouncing around ideas, and we're sitting over at Dan's desk, and Pierce is working out, and I just peek my head, and I'm like, what about that guy? That guy right there.
What about this
And Pierce
doofus?
and Dan turns around and he goes, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Should probably go ask him. And so then I just walk up to him, like, So I know you're mid-workout,
Yeah,
but would you
getting stuck on the bench press.
would you want to coach like on the
Yeah.
floor? And he was like, actually, yeah, I would.
Yeah, and getting to the reps things too. Like one of the hardest things I learned throughout my master's degree, and it's, it was in here too. It's like the hypothetical is the hardest thing, and the professor said all the time. Planning and doing lesson plans for a made-up group, like like ghost students,
Right.
is so much harder than it is to like get the reps in the field, learn on by applying it. So like even throughout certification, I'm like, yeah, you're doing the test, you're doing that. But I'm like, it makes sense, like I understand, but until, like I said, you get the reps and you're thrown into it, you really don't know if you like it or not. And that's how I love teaching too, so it doesn't take anything away from that. But like this was a whole different ballgame for me. And once I started getting reps on the floor and getting comfortable, I was 100% bought in. So
Well, Mike mentioned this before. I mean, for me, I'd worked in commercial gym setting, doing mostly one-on-ones for years. With the occasional, what they called small group training classes that I had to do in whatever, but it wasn't me making the workout, so that's a whole nother thing. We had the Dutchman in here that first summer, and really was like, I got better at this by just being in it. Just like, here's the fire, go go jump in. Like that was it.
You feel the same, Connor? Because I think it's important to come from, I think the one-on-one background is important though. Like to be able to command a whole hour with somebody, to be able to plan out that session, be able to have a conversation, be able to retain somebody over time. I think that's so important. But then, yeah, doing that small group is like another level. I feel like you're almost taking those one-on-one skills and you're almost like scaling it within yourself in terms of being able to interact with different people every hour.
Yeah, well, then a lot of it is relationship. That's where the more time you get to spend with somebody to learn about them, and you get to get a feel for them and what they need to be doing in their workouts, and so that's where a lot of the translation is for me. Like when I switched over, it was, the thing beating into my head was like, they're not injured. Like, you don't have to scale down. You got to work on scaling up. So there was a lot of a learning curve on that front, but but still getting to know the patients or the clients, and then what they need to do.
It's windy.
But yeah, it's great to have that environment.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in the grand scheme, like again, I came from like doing more one-on-ones, and again, the occasional like 4 people at once that when I was trying to do stuff at New York Sports Club to get like a little group going, but never really caught. But for me, it's like I had those skills for the one-on-one, so it made, once I learned like the flow of moving around a group, it was easier because it's like you don't have that dead time of like, all right, what do I say here?
Yeah, that's big.
Right? Like you're like, this is awkward silence.
For some reason, for the longest time, I feel like people thought personal training, it was just done one-on-one. Like that's what you do. You're one-on-one with somebody paying for that hour. But really, if you're doing your job, like the person's not going to need you to hold their hand for forever. So it's like this semi-private group. We're going to get back to talking why we chose this business model, because now and we can talk about that next. If I onboard a client properly, I can over time. They're going to need less help. So they don't need to be paying me, this big price point per hour for me to watch them do all of their exercises the whole time.
And but then they're still getting that coaching, or they still have that resource there.
Right.
If they're like sitting there deer in headlights and like, what do I do? Like, okay, I have a coach I can go ask this question to, or a coach sees you kind of standing there a little lost, and we can walk over and make sure they're good. But you're not paying the premium that you would for like that one-on-one training.
Right. I think that's what we did a good job of when we started. Was like, and credit to Reinhold for this, is like just creating systems, because the more you progress in business, when it's early on, Dan, just you and I, like we did a good job having the systems. So you could get by without them. Hey, I'm just doing my daily tasks. I'm just getting things done. I'm just moving on. But as you grow and things become more complex, things are going to get a lot more messy if you don't have these systems in place in terms of hours of operation, how you run a training session, how you do your programming. Like, Dan, I feel like what helped us a lot early on was creating systems. Let's just talk about on how we're going to assess, how we're going to program, how we're going to run a session front, was huge.
Yeah, and I mean, and that started all the way back when we were trying to figure out where the heck we were going to put this facility, right? So what do we want the place to look like? Because we need that facility to function in a way that fits our systems and allows us to run a smooth training session based on the layout of the gym.
Yeah, we were very thoughtful about all of that as well. That's a great point. I think thoughtfulness of that thoughtfulness of what type of, we want a warehouse space. We want big garage doors. We want tall ceilings to make the place present bigger. But on the coaching front, what people don't think about is I want open lanes to see everybody, to coach.
Yeah.
If I have a 1 or 2 coach hour in a full group, any of us can stand anywhere in this gym and spot anybody and coach anything. And like, that's strategic.
Switch your legs.
Chops, pillow press.
Assassin. Sniper. Switch your legs.
Right? Yeah, I think that's big. And
They
I
start
think,
looking around the gym. They're like,
Yeah.
where's that coming from?
and I think what people miss too is, Dan, I think what was big for us is we were just open all day. You could sign in on the hour. I think a lot of people, when they start a business, and we were in our 20s, no kids, all invested in this, but they may try to fit their business into their life. Hey, I'm going to see groups at 9 and 10. I'm going to see groups at 4 and 5. It's going to take you a lot longer to build your business in that realm.
Right.
Well, we were just like floodgates open, and let's get in as many bodies as we can in the door and be accommodating. Even it made for long days, but I think that was a big player in helping us grow.
Yeah, I think early on, one of the early on, one of the actual mistakes that we made was that you and I, for the first, I don't know how long, were here both 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Regardless of if we had anybody here.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean,
Would you change that? Maybe not as long. Like, we wouldn't have done it for as long.
maybe it would just, no, I don't think I would change it. Cause I also think realistically, we were up, we were here, and then even if we didn't have people, we were working on the business.
Right.
And then we eventually moved to like 1 day a week. One of us would come in at 8 a.m.
Dude, I forgot about those days.
And then it was, I was Tuesday, Thursday, you were Monday, Wednesday, whatever it was.
Yeah, because when
But
I
yeah, we were
started,
just-
that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was, you guys both came in like Fridays early, but then you guys alternated
The other days.
the other days.
And like
Holy
looking back, like we could have got away with not doing that, but I think in the overall like grand scheme of building a business, that was probably what had to be done at the time. But yeah, we probably could have switched that a little sooner. And thinking more about how our schedule is now, whereas like we're open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. But it doesn't require 3 coaches here from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I mean, maybe someday it will, but like realistically, the number of people getting up at 6 a.m. is smaller than the number of people that are going to come in after work.
Right.
You know, and because that is going to include your high school athletes, middle school athletes, adults, whoever, that everyone can fall into that category. Whereas you just don't see that as much with the younger crowd because they can't drive, most of them. So you get the adults that come in early, and most of them, you know, we've onboarded them properly, right? And they come in and they can get after it for the hour before work. And then they go, it really requires one coach. But early on, no, we probably still had, we didn't need to be here coaching wise, but I think for the sake of the business, it was good that we were both here grinding together, doing everything we needed to do to make sure that, you know, the next month was better than the month before.
What time did you guys have the adult?
Yeah.
That was another thing.
That
was
was I was
Go,
going to ask.
Connor.
That
Yeah.
was part of why we needed 2 people.
Well, that was what I was curious, because I remember there was a time when there was available windows to be in your semi-private, and there was your class hours. So then, like that.
That was a big mistake. We should have never have done that.
Yes.
Yeah, because then it'd be like you'd have people doing like this group class, but then also people doing a semi-private at the same time, which just logistically made no sense because we had to have 2 coaches here for 2 services that weren't really booming in full.
Yeah.
So you could have you could legitimately have 2 people out there, like 2 clients, and you would have to have 2 coaches because it was technically
Different
2
services.
separate
Right.
offerings.
So that's right there where you know, obviously, you know, you live and you learn, but understanding, like finding that whatever model you want to do when it comes to a training gym, like, and doubling down on it so that way you're not trying to overextend it yourself with 2 different offerings and then confusing the consumer. And then as a coach, you're like, all right, shit, like who's coaching this group and then who's coaching that? And it just makes it so that the systems are harder to kind of keep in place.
I'm glad we figured that out early on, though. Right? Like
That's one of those things where, yeah, it's going to get messier as time goes on.
We just didn't know, because also the model wasn't necessarily availability where you're dealing with semi-private that ultimately led to the dominance of the clients now. But at that time, I mean, it was literally, like we said, it's your metabolic, your burn boot camp. I mean, people liked that little bit of group setting
Yeah, but
motivation.
looking
We just
back-
didn't know.
Too, it's like I don't want to compete with that. You know, it's just not something
I don't want to coach that stuff.
I don't want to coach that. But also our type of
Sweat.
The training gym's interesting too because, well, okay, we're unique because we do athletes, but that's the Cressy, the Champion, the Boyle model. So you have your athlete population, then you have your adult population, and those larger group boot camp gyms, they kind of own that, I'd say 20 to 35 market. I don't want to mess with that little bit lower price point. I just want to go in and sweat. I want to beat myself up.
Yeah.
Like, just not for me. Good for you if it's for you, but not for me. Where then you see your athlete population and then our adult population, which is going to tend to be post-injury. I need a little bit more attention. I just kind of value the individualness and the kind of relationship with the coach. So you tend to have a little bit of an older age range with your adult clientele.
I'm just a little curious too. When was the board implemented?
So the board was our group class.
Okay.
And
It
that's
used to be called the adult group training.
Okay.
So when I think this was within the past, I don't know, maybe 3 years, Paul was on board, and we said we have to just be way more concise with our offerings. We offer semi-private training, and that's it. You're going to come in here, you're going to have your program, you're going to be in that small group with a coach. But we had people who were on that group training membership. So instead of telling them, hey, sorry guys, we don't offer this anymore, you're going to have to go somewhere else, or you're going to have to pay us, jump up their rate, $200 a month, $150 a month. We say, hey, we're going to keep this offering. It's going to be a non-customized program. So Dan writes them every month. They're there for you to do. You still get coaching. It's just a non-customized program that's now done into our small group. So that way it blends when you're coaching a group. It's just like a lower tiered programming option. That's how I view it.
It allows for a more long-term commitment for people that maybe financially can't afford that custom and whatnot, or just in general, it's a lower price point. So over the long haul, instead of paying, $300 a month for coming in 3 days a week, you can come in 5 days a week or 6 days a week for, $170 a month or whatever it is,
I think it just speaks towards the coming in and getting after it.
Yeah.
Like not worrying about this. It's just here's a board.
And the
come
freedom
in.
of schedule. I mean, you're not relying on a slot. You
Yeah.
can come in at your leisure.
Well, and one of the reasons the board works, and I think of the strength camps in particular, is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel for most populations.
Right.
Come in, attack certain movements, upper body, lower body, full body. Generally keeping it simple and offering variations on those exercises allows anyone through most levels of fitness to come in and still do the workout and not feel like they're scaling it too much. The way it's written, it's like deadlift variation. Could be a kettlebell, could be a bar. I mean, we don't really barbell, but could be a trap bar, could be
Two kettlebells.
T-bell, squat variation. Maybe it's a goblet squat. Some people are using the safety bar.
Yeah.
Adults still want to get after it and work hard, and you do it in a way that allows them to. You create the program in a way that allows them to do that without putting them in at a risky
I think
positions.
that's where the training style gym, how we run it in the semi-private small group too, it allows you to tap into both of those populations, an adult population and a youth and an athlete population, and do it pretty seamlessly in terms of how the programming is set up. I think I was talking to Dan and Paul yesterday about the Boyle post, where he said, I think one of his spring seminars, he's doing just the current state of the industry. And then Connor, he says, adult training is hot, which that's what we've been talking about, trying to build our adult clients. Middle school training is booming. Pierce, you've been growing that like crazy. And high school training is in flux, like we talked about last podcast, because kids are so busy with stuff.
Yeah, and figuring out how we can help the high school kids not be in flux is a huge thing that I feel like we do a great job of. And then, we do our best with, the sports teams around here to try to work with them and work around the schedules that they have. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. But like you said, the adult populations where we're trying to double down, that's the hot commodity right now. And in middle school is just, you got these middle schoolers that are trying to get into weightlifting and they need to learn how to move.
And they're less busy
proper.
in their schedules, right?
Yes.
So
They're less busy, but also just helping them learn how to move properly. We had a mom and a son come in yesterday, and she was asking about the youth stuff, and I was explaining to her. She was like, "He's not going to be lifting a lot of heavy weight." I'm like, "Nope, we focus on correct movement patterns, getting them associated with the weight room, understanding how to be in a group setting. So then when they are old enough to be in our regular semi-private group, they already have an understanding. They're going to hit the ground running when it comes down to
it's
that.
like a prereq.
Yes.
Well, I think part of too, like what's great with the youth training that we do, that Pierce does a lot of, that is like the education piece, right? Like this is how it's supposed to be done in the weight room, right? We're learning how to like move better, but it's also, this is how, you know, a weightlifting program should be structured. You know, so they can, when they get onto high school or doing stuff with their teams as they get a little bit older, they can have a little bit of a barometer of like, this is probably not the best thing for me to be doing on a regular basis. And so they learn that. And then, you know, going back to what you said, Paul, like parents ask, oh, they're not going to be like lifting really heavy weights or this or that. These kids haven't hit puberty yet. They're not going to come in here and start, you know, back squatting 250 pounds and put on all this muscle. They're younger. They just learning how to move better.
Yeah.
You know? And
it's even the smaller things for me. It's like just the awareness. Like you're 11, there's a 25-year-old, or maybe there's a 17-year-old who's committed to here, like, or there's an adult, or so it's just like walking around the weight room. It's all the little stuff when it comes to youth. It's like looking at a program, having a routine. What's the first, like I feel like a class, what's the first thing my set of students or a member comes in? Do they know what they're doing the first thing when they walk in? Do they grab the foam roller? Do they, you know, do they grab their, you know, it's all the little stuff that I think just gets sometimes blown over.
That social awareness.
Yeah, social awareness.
But it's creating an environment and systems where that's what happens automatically. It's routine.
It's just repetition for it's keeping it. I think you were talking about like simple, obviously, and we all talk about keeping it simple. But we can also be like the flexible part's huge too. It's like kids have different days sometimes. Kids have different things going on.
With
it's
scheduling,
like,
you're saying?
With scheduling, or just even the workouts that they're doing. It's like, I'm not reinventing a wheel, but it doesn't mean we have to, you know, yes, I like repetition, but there's also so many other things that can accomplish the same thing. So it's like keeping it fun, keeping it active.
Right.
Like they're not just coming in and doing a dual program for 2 months of their life and it doesn't change. It's like there's just so much flexibility there too that I think is huge for the youth, that, you know, helps us, again, transition them into a whole group. And then, because they're going to have programs that change probably every month, you know, or maybe a little bit longer when we reprogram and stuff. But it's like just setting up all those skill sets to get to where they need to be able to come in here and not have it be extra work for us, and they can just hit the ground running and get after it. I think it's a huge thing.
Well, it's funny too how it's come back around, because about 3 years ago, remember we had the conversation about that middle school athlete, and figuring out, and we, you know,
about do they fit into our regular model?
And the goal had been the same, right? I mean, the respect of building the next generation, allowing the kids to have the respect for the weight room, like their bodies, because now they're entering that high school phase where we're talking about the schedule issues, right? And just being bombarded with club and but it's creeping into their age group, but having them build up this understanding of, you know, programming, mobility, listening to their bodies, owning movement patterns. You know, it's a lot of times the high school athlete comes to be almost a little late. Like we're finding them and we're trying to fix things more than we are trying to build awareness.
And I think too, we all feel strongly about like, this is how you train. This is a proper way to train for longevity and for athletic development. So on that front, it fits. Stay healthy, improve fitness qualities, get better at my sport, or just get better at life if I'm an adult. But also from a business standpoint, like what's our number one, we talk about like performance indicator that we want. We want high
lifetime client value.
We want high lifetime client values. People are paying us for a long period of time. You could really come in here as a middle schooler, train all the way through middle, all the way through high school, go into adult programming, and like the way you approach the gym, it's not going to change much at all. The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas makes my favorite pair of socks, hands down, alongside the most comfortable and durable underwear, t-shirts, and other everyday clothing staples. Their wide variety of sock lengths, colors, and patterns have you covered, whether you're working out, going out, or lounging at home. I love their merino wool blend athletic ankle sock for long days of coaching at CDSF and getting in workouts myself. And if I'm at home doing work around the house, you better believe I'm wearing my Bombas Sunday slippers with their comfy memory foam midsole. And when you buy from Bombas, you're also buying for those in need. For every item you purchase, Bombas donates one item to people in overnight shelters, transitional living facilities, rehab centers, Title I schools, and medical service professionals. Take my word, if you want to upgrade your sock game to one that's more comfortable, durable, fashionable, and charitable, head over to the Bombas link in this episode's description to browse their full collection of everyday wear, and don't forget to use code CDSF20 for 20% off your first order.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. I mean, when you're dealing with these kids that, we talked about from those years ago.
Number 2.
The kids that are crushing it with us right now, at that time from when we started with this 3 years ago, are some of the best athletes, and this is one of the funnest progressions we've seen because they understand it, they respect it, and and really a lot of them are now bringing their buddies now, and it's it's a great environment. But I think the respect of it is really the big thing, because the kids are moving better, they become better athletes, for their teams too, as a result of like learning how to move
and big thing with the youth. It's one of my favorite things, like coming in and doing things you might not want to do. The discipline of, not like in terms of like it's too hard or it's too challenging, but it's like, hey, I have a bad attitude right now, and it carries outside. It's like coming in here and getting after and doing things you might not like at first, and then you leave here, and then they feel that, oh, wow, like I just worked really hard, and I actually feel pretty good about this, and kind of building that discipline side of things, too, at a young age. It's huge.
Discipline, education, and, like, one of the things I talk to kids in here all the time about is, like, educating them on being their best coach, because you're going to have a different coach from each level. If you go on to play college, it's going to be a different coach. So being able to understand your body, your strengths, your weaknesses, and being able to advocate for yourself. Like, coach has you doing back squats, and we've talked to you about how, for your spine, maybe back squats are not a great exercise. It's probably one of the number one things that maybe is causing this person's back to hurt and whatnot. And
you talk about lifetime client values. Getting hurt is one way to derail somebody. Right. Get them out of your gym, get their money out of your business, make them feel some type of way that's negative about exercise and exercise with you. Yeah, so it's also detailed just on the programming front. To me, in my eyes, it's all feeding into that lifetime client value. Systems, experience, programming, knowing what you're going to get, wanting to come back.
Yeah. You made a good point before. It's kind of like we all, as coaches, kind of view training in general just in a similar way, right? The way we program, a lot of times, I mean, especially early on, I feel like Mike and I could write a program and we didn't know who the hell wrote it, because we were, locked in on the same page with the type of programming that we do. And that type of programming is low risk. My favorite thing you always say is, like, if you had to defend an exercise in a courtroom, how would you do it, right? That all adds to that, that lifetime client value, is keeping them here and doing these exercises. And over the course of 6-7 years now that we've been here, has the training changed to some extent? Yes, absolutely.
To be more efficient.
To be more efficient. If we stop learning stuff, we're not doing anyone
I think this is also all right. Here's a downside of this type of training, Jim. Early on, when you're not busy, people are laid back. They'll stay for hours. They'll stay for 2 hours. They'll stay for a long time. Chop it up with their buddies. Take forever. But as you grow as a business and you get busier, you go, oh wow, this group of 8 is going to turn into a group of 12, and I got to clear these bodies before this next hour. I think that's a huge piece to understand is going to happen. And I feel like, has that been hard to get people to understand? I feel like we've all had talks with people and try to set more rules. But like, Dan, that's been a real thing, right? Like, hey, this is still what it was. It's still that same good workout experience, but we are more scaled now. We're bigger. We have to make things more efficient.
And we've talked about this, and you've mentioned this. I think goes back to that book, with the Starbucks book there. Yeah. Right. Like, we want them. You want them to want to be here, and we want them to want to be here.
Yeah, your third home, right?
Your third home.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Within reason.
We don't want you to kick your feet up on the couch and start watching, reruns of Seinfeld, right? We want we want you to want to be here. Because,
Is that what you would do?
No, not at all.
I think Dan watched Seinfeld lately.
But yeah, so we want them to want to be here, but within reason, and part of that comes back to the programming, right? We talk about the flow of the gym and the programming, and I think this is something that we, people who are listening who work with us will start to see a little bit more of. Is like we're trying to keep exercises that you can do near each other within your program, so that we're being a little bit more efficient. You don't have to make 5 cross gym trips, every 2 supersets of exercises, is being more efficient. And doing that has kind of sped things up a little bit. Some of the rules that you've talked, like some of the soft rules that you've talked about a little bit, and just making sure that we're staying on task. I think those are big pieces of keeping this place operating smoothly.
Yeah, it's just like people come in the door, just got to get them moving, like when they get in the door. It can't be like, all right, let me go take 10 minutes to get my program and my foam roller and take my shoes off, and like all of a sudden it's 10 minutes and you've been here that whole time, but you haven't done a thing yet. Like it's just getting people to move with a little bit more sense of urgency at the beginning of their workouts, because then by the time they get into it, now you're actually warmed up. You're not just like sitting on a foam roller freezing because it's winter and like, you haven't been moving at all, and then all of a sudden like you get into a lift and you're like, oh, dude, this feels harder. Like you weren't actually warming up. You just were kind of hanging out and then decided to get after it on your lift.
Yeah. And then
The socializing after school too. It's like
That's
they're all
real
cooped
though,
up.
right?
Yeah, it's like the 4 o'clock on. I want to let them talk and get it out as much as you can, but sometimes we get a little too far with it, all that. But it's like I get it. Like you're coming from school, you're listening to the teacher all day. And then
you listen to us.
But yeah, but then they come right after. They come right after school, and it's like, like finally, which you want that. Like that's kind of what we want to invite a little bit at, but. Sometimes that socializing turns into half an hour, and you're like, okay,
Yeah, it's a happy balance.
We gotta get that. We gotta get moving. Like we don't have time.
I find
for
one
this.
of the biggest disturbances to the flow of our gym this time of year is when people come early or they're here too late, and then they're trying to do exercises in an area that should be other exercises being done at that time.
Well, let's talk about that,
hour.
because I'll see this with gyms too. Like maybe their business structure is good and their offerings are good and their price points are good, but then you look at their facility layout and you go, that does not seem really smooth. I got a couple machines here, I got some ropes there, I got some med balls there. Because when we started, Dan, and when Pierce and Connor were working out here,
When I started here too.
everything had a specific. Cause let's see, how many versions have we done of our layout? When we opened, Dan, and then we had COVID pods.
Yep.
COVID pods. Yep.
And then we had expansion, which
We were still doing pods at the time, though. Yes,
Yep.
because we had this tape. Yep.
So
and then we did
the remodel.
So really,
four.
four.
So 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I remember when we talked about the remodel to get from version 3 to version 4, and we were just like, something has got to change, because like there was too many people, like we talked about, crossing paths. There felt like there wasn't enough space to do certain things, and then we kind of just looked at it and we're like, well, if we just take this giant rack and split it in half.
Yeah, we got rid of the rig, but we went back to how when we started that everything has a specific home in the gym.
When you guys first opened and we had the wall up before we expanded, it made sense because everything did flow in a circle, and that's why that rack was there and the rig was set up the way it was, because everything flowed in a circle. And then once we expanded, it didn't flow in that circle anymore, and now we had to figure out, okay, what makes the most sense flow-wise to make sure people aren't on top of each other and we're efficient and our coaching is still top tier, so that way we don't feel overwhelmed with like just getting people in the right spots, to make sure they're working out appropriately. And that's when we also got rid of the pods again. It was like the pods, I think, warped people's brains into thinking like, oh, you can't enter my pod.
Well, and it made a 10-person hour feel like 30.
Yeah,
where now a 10-person hour feels like 6.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
Unless we have like 6 new people that all are like new programs, all brand new people, like that feels like a little bit. But like in general, like we'll have 10 people, and like sometimes I'm like, wait, there's 10 people here?
Is that the biggest challenge of the degree of customization that we do in this type of gym, is the onboarding of the new client and making that seamless within your existing operation? Like, you have a busy hour and then you go, all right, this person, it's their first time in after their strategy session. And it's like, I need to spend a lot of time with, right? Is
It's
that
like
the,
it's if we're going back to what we said earlier, it's like almost for those 2 first sessions, it's that combo of group and personal training. again. So that's where it's like that's tough, but we also know it's not going to last. Like it's
Right.
I would say on average the first day 1 and day 2, and then things start getting a little bit easier. And,
I think if you-
and then we push for that too. It's
Right.
like we push
And
for
if-
the independence. We say, hey, see how much you can get done with foam rolling, or see how much you can get to warm-ups before you come ask me something.
okay,
It's like,
onboarding a new client, Connor, how big is just doing the strategy session 1 hour one-on-one?
Huge. I mean, that's where you get to learn them. You know, that between that and then the first 2 programs that you choose to meet to them, you're just reevaluating still in those first 2 sessions. You know, if it's a 2-day program, those time is crucial. So, but I think that's the biggest value that we carry as this semi-private and what we design is the time that we take to get to know the athlete and see him move. Because the evaluation's huge, the strategy session's huge, but then it's like it continues into those first couple of days, whether it's with the same coach or not. We just learn, all right, yeah, you did that really well, and then, but that time in a busy hour, it certainly makes it a little bit, you know, it's hectic for the coach, but the time spent with that, we do a good job making sure that those kids get acclimated or those athletes get acclimated.
Yeah, in my head, it's always like that time spent. It makes it maybe so hard the first couple times, but it pays off tremendously
Huge.
after that with getting somebody integrated into a group.
And if you knock out the first one, even if it's they're a 2-day person or whatever, you knock out that first one out of the park, they're going to come in the second time. They're going to go get their foam roller.
Yeah.
They're going to go get their clipboard. They're going to go. We just have a girl that just started recently, and like she came in, she grabbed her clipboard, grabbed her foam roller, started foam rolling, went through all her foam rolling without any help, maybe a little bit of help. I barely saw anybody go over there and help her for that. And like, because I asked her, I was like, hey, just remember what you can, and then we'll come over and help you. And then she came over, asked a few questions about warm-ups, and then obviously she had questions for day 2 because it was her first time. But the fact that we knocked out that first session out of the park made it so that when she came in that second time, even though it was a new day, it was so smooth and seamless.
But even though like those are busy hours, but I find it to be like, you know, we all look forward to then like, yeah, I'm ready to go in and work with them. Like I maybe not did their assessment or his assessment, but I want to make sure that like I want to get to know them. So I think a lot of that is even we do find ourselves wanting to jump on the opportunity to get to know the new athlete and kind of bring it in, even if it is like, but then we help each other out getting through the busy times with other kids on the floor. But I don't know. It's also just it's an exciting, like, it's a new invitation to, new part of the family. So it's a good time to get to know them.
And sometimes that's a break too. Like, for one of like somebody that's been here since 6 a.m. We just got done coaching a busy 4 crew that's got 12 people in it, and we had an appointment. You got a 5 to 6 o'clock. You have a brand new person. Hey, Mike, you were just on the floor all day. Let's have you. Do you want to go one-on-one with this person? And then you can get out of here. That way you can kind of, because it doesn't feel as much. Of a rush when you're trying to do that.
And we've gotten great at communication in terms of how to handle those hours. I think that's another part of this business model with the customized programs is that the coaches, every hour is a little bit different. How many new people, how many new programs, who has this injury going on? And we all have to be on the same page with that, which is done through communication and then organizing that hour. Okay, you're going to be with these people. I'll be this one-on-one. You're going to bounce around, which I feel like we've gotten way better at over time.
I mean, you could have back-to-back 10 person hours that one requires 4 coaches and one requires 2.
Great.
Based on who's in that
session. Yeah, absolutely. And shit, I was gonna say something that might off a mic, but
No,
I don't remember.
that's a good point. But I think too, getting into even how to structure your business model with coaches is right. I think we have our main service offering. We have our semi-private training. You're coming here doing all the things that we just talked about. But also we have our complementary services. We have pitching. We have personal training. Connor does his stretching. It's to give our clients another way to get better through a different service, but also to give our coaches more income and more money. Because this field, like we did talk about early on, people are passionate. They go into it because of their passion. They may not set up their businesses with great structure. You have people who are working on straight up commissions for years. That's how I was in Boston for a while, and that's a stressful ass life. It's like I feel like not many, and some do for sure, but even businesses structure their employment as like, this is a real fucking job. You have a salary, and you're going to have benefits, and you're going to have responsibilities, and you're going to have hours, and you're going to have people you communicate with. But I feel like setting up that base allows all this kind of smooth communication and execution to be able to happen because you're less stressed about like, oh God, I got to see 10 people today to make to make my money. I'm just out there coaching and executing. And the complementary services, it allows people to be motivated to drive some extra income for themselves. And I think that brings us to another point of scaling a gym like this, is making it be able to blend, where your coaches can offer these complementary services to help them make more money, make your business more money, but still keep that main product going. Because I feel like next to new client onboards, you have balancing people's complementary services with groups being executed. Yeah.
Yeah. And making sure like those groups that we're doing are complementing, like if it's, because a lot of the people that do the extra workouts or whatever it is, the extra offerings, are people that are doing our normal offering, our semi-private offering. There are like, you think
almost always, right?
The only ones that I would say is like, Pierce's youth training is like just the younger version of what we do on a regular basis. But pitching, speed agility camp, even personal training, some of the clients have done like semi-private and everything. So like all of those things are meant to like complement what we already do here. So that way the clients are getting a great experience through everything.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, because what was our first? I mean, we always did personal training, and then was pitching our next one that we introduced.
Yeah, in 21 when we expanded. I mean, before that even happened, how many times were we going around the gym like measuring, seeing if do we have 60 feet here? Do we have 60 feet here? Realistically, you need more than 60 feet, obviously, because 60 feet 6 inches, you got to pitch somewhere and catch somewhere. But like we were just any way we could, we were trying to find a way to make that happen. And so before we even had the ability to do it, we were looking to add a secondary service, or I guess tertiary would be if we count personal training stuff. And at that time, we still had group training too, technically. I'm so glad we don't do it anymore. Yeah. It's way better the way we have it.
I'm so glad I was never here when that happened.
Yeah,
I just think of all the awesome adults we have that are here because they can do the adult like the board. The board. I just think all the people we have that do that, and they're all awesome. So I'm like, would we still have all those people if it weren't for the board offering?
Right.
I don't know if that's necessarily we would. Just price wise, they would have to do the custom stuff, and the custom stuff is a great offering for those who want it and those who need it. The board just works so great for the adults that taking it out of that group training and trying to pigeonhole them into like 2, 3, 4 hours in the entire day, we wouldn't have had those same people here, and I'm glad we changed that up.
Yeah, and changing the branding of it too, I think helped, because
to not be group training.
Because clients got confused, like, well, what's this adult group training?
Right.
And then I was like, I'm so sick of explaining this. So then like one day we were kind of like, I think one of our clients might have brought it up, like, oh, it's just, they always say the board, and I was like, huh.
Yeah.
The board.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Simple.
The heralded board.
Yep. And then somebody has to be actually, he's been on the podcast. I can drop his name. Neil had to go, well, really, it's a wall. And I'm like, of course, Neil. Of course you would say that.
Sounds about right, Neil.
I'm like, it's a chalkboard paint, Neil.
Protect the wall.
But yeah, again, going back to like simplifying what you're offering to make it easier for the consumer to understand what you're offering, Oh, what's the board? The board is a non-custom workout that's for the general population.
One thing I always go back and forth between, because you have, what we've really modeled off of is like some of Cressy's, some of Champion, some of Boyle's, where a Cressy, a Champion blend adults and kids like we do, where a Boyle has different groups for adults and kids, where I sometimes still in my head go, should we have split it? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think for the amount of space that we have, realistically, you can't.
And I feel like that limits your, either because the space, or it just limits your availability for people.
Yeah, availability for people.
That's the biggest thing.
And like, again, you going back to what Dan said when you guys were here, all day, every day. Now you're required to have more coaches.
Right.
Because like, let's say you want to offer at the same time the adult group and the kids to be able to do it.
And they're still working out together anyways.
Yeah. They're still working out together
Doesn't
anyways,
matter.
but now you're like, okay, and unless it, like, if we knock down this wall over here, that gives you more space to maybe do like adults over there, kids over there, but you don't want to do that.
No, you want to have over there flow into the rest of the gym.
You want that to be our warm-up, sprints, all that stuff over there, and then you flow into the gym after that for the rest of your lift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is nice. For me, like, doesn't it doesn't, like what Paul said, it doesn't work in this
I always go
environment.
back to no in my head, but it's something that
The
does
only,
pop in.
Yeah, the only way that happens is like you have an hour where kids can't sign in at all, and like you said, then or adults can't sign, whatever it might be. Then you limit the availability. Like I know sometimes like for an adult, I could see how it could be a little hectic. I think it's awesome personally. I love.
Yeah. Well, how many families do we have that
We have
train
so many.
together?
We have so
and they
many
love it?
families that train together. It's such a good opportunity for young adults to interact with actual adults and learn how to be social.
Well, do you ever think too that's part of what makes kids behave better in here? Like if you have a group of all high school kids, they're probably going to be a little bit more wild than if you sprinkle in a few adults, or a group of all boys are going to be more wild than if you sprinkle them in with a few girls. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think kids are kids. So it's like it's really just it's very situational and stuff. But yeah, no, I agree.
I think obviously in here we have kids that know some of the adults in here, so they
Right.
have like they go, oh,
Yeah.
he was
They
my
wanna come
coach,
back
or
to
he was
mom.
this, or
Right.
or like their parents are they're friends with my parents, so like they're just a little bit more like, you know, hey, I'm gonna be well behaved because I don't, you know, there's obviously eyes on me.
Right.
I mean, realistically too, like during the school year, the mornings are pretty much all adults, right? Like we the
Yes.
occasional kid who's motivated and comes in at 6 a.m. or like they don't have any other option, but for the most part, the mornings are pretty much just adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the next level for us, is to fill our mornings with more adults, because our afternoons are pretty slammed. We want to grow our adult clientele, and our mornings aren't as busy. So from a revenue standpoint, from progressing the business and scaling and growing more, I feel like that is like the biggest
And that
pot to fill right now.
that 9, 10, 11 time slot's always going to be a difficult time slot to fill up because of the fact that people work, things like that. So it's just like, okay, how can we figure out how to get people that can fit in those time slots? And
Yeah.
you know, that's us game planning, sitting down, trying to figure out like, okay, is there somewhere we can go to, you know, get adults that aren't working at that time and whatnot,
Or
and
adults to fill those hours.
fill those hours, because you know, you go to, it could be any style of gym, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's event, ABC here, Orange Theory. I bet you 9, 10, and 11 are their quietest hours.
Yeah.
I bet you no matter what, those are the quietest hours. And then they probably have, like if it's like a Orange Theory, they probably have a busy 12 and 1 because that's lunch. People go on their lunch break, get their workout in, that kind of stuff. But that 9, 10, 11 is probably like their quietest hours in every gym for the most part. You know, I remember working at New York Sports Club. That was the time where like clients, when I would get them one-on-one, it was the best because I never had people in my way. And I could just go to any machine and use anything, and it was my favorite.
Well, and that's what's tough too about, you know, say you look at like our normal day where we're technically closed between 12 and 2. Yes, to get our work done and get our own workouts in, eat lunch, do whatever. But realistically, because the number of people that are going to be that would sign into those hours is really
I think
really
that's
minimal.
key too. If you're starting a gym, like shut yourself down for a couple hours. Nobody can book. Let yourself regather your brain, have a shift change with coaches, be able to work out. I think that's a Cressy move that I took it from.
And when I was working commercial gym, like technically, like I wasn't scheduled those hours. So a lot of times, and that's what's tough about getting started, right? Is I don't think people realize, like, maybe you only work 8 or 10 hours, but you're going to be there a long time. I think about, even for us, right? Like if I come in at 6 a.m. and I'm here until 5:30, yeah, I didn't work between 12 and 2, but I'm still here from, you know, before we open to that 5:30. So it's almost 12 hours. And I think people who aren't in the business don't understand that. They think, oh, you work so many hours. Like, well, technically I only worked these hours.
Right.
So like in the grand scheme of things, yeah, I was at the gym for 60 hours, but I technically was only coaching for, you know, 50 or 45 of them.
Well, and I think that's the other thing, getting into this field and understanding if you have a passion to be in this field, the hours you work are going to be the hours that everybody else is not working because that's when they're available. So you're going to be working 6, 7, 8 a.m. and then you're going to have like this time in the day that it's just like, okay, what do I do here? And then all of a sudden it's going to be 4, 5, and 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Those are going to, like when I was in New York City, that's what it was. I pretty much every day was 7, 8, 9, maybe have a 10 or 11 or a 12, and then I'd have lunch hour people because it's New York City, so people work out on their lunch break because it's right there, and then I would have another 2-hour break, and then I'd have 4, 5, 6, 7, almost every day, and it's like you have to accept that you're working the hours that everybody else isn't working.
Yeah.
Most people aren't used to the split shift. Mm-hmm.
Connor Maloney is the king of the split shift right now.
Yeah, living by it. It's great.
I don't even
split
shift.
I've never worked in like 9 to 5 type job ever. I worked retail where it was sometimes morning, sometimes night.
I worked summer camp once.
Has anybody here? This is interesting.
Like as an adult?
As an adult,
Adult,
no. As
working
an
9
adult.
to 5.
No.
Connor?
No,
You grew up in small business with the restaurant.
Yeah, so the restaurant was that. Yeah.
I did. I did a year at Regeneron.
Yeah, that was
that's right.
Not
Shout
for
out
you.
Regeneron.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me. Well, technically it was 10 hours, so it was 6:30 to 4:30.
You had one of those weird shifts for like your weekend wasn't the weekend.
And I also worked, so I guess that wasn't even normal. I guess I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 10-hour shifts. So I've never worked a Monday through Friday 9 to 5.
Jeez, Pierce, is your teaching the closest 9 to 5
it's
anyone
like
has done?
7:30 to
Jay,
3.
you've never.
But
you
like
done
just
a
like
9
a
to
basic
5?
like 8-hour shift of like normal, like somewhat normal hours, whether it's like 7 to 3:30
And
or
my
whatever.
schedule
But
is
like
8 to 5.
yeah, your schedule. But then you're here or you're so like it's not just that's probably the closest is that 8 to 5. But
But
are you
anyone
really there
here-
just 8 to 5?
Yeah, I think my Monday here is 9 to 9. Like,
Yeah.
'cause it's like, because the Arnold thing too and everything after that. So it just makes, yeah, but I always tell myself I'd be here anyways. So it's like,
like
either I'm working out all day or like I'm working all day. So it's like,
Well, I remember
the 12
Mike-
to 2 is huge though.
Yeah.
Gives us a lot of time to like, because it's flexible. It's like, use it wisely. Like whatever you need to do, whether it's working out, whether it's for yourself.
go take a
whether it's
nap.
for-
Go take a nap.
Like anything, go get lunch. Like it's great to have.
It's also interesting too. I think about the prospect of a 9 to 5 and like the people that we work with, and I'm like, I can't picture any of us working a 9 to 5. Like it's just not.
No.
Just not my.
Well, I think because my makeup is such a grinder, there's no shaking that. I've honestly tried to be like, all right, dude, like just take your foot off the gas a little bit, take a breath, and it's just fucking hard. So it's like if I had a 9 to 5 working for somebody else, I think I would be doing the same because that's just my makeup.
Yeah.
So my head is just like, why not go all in for me and something that I can collectively grow with people I care about? Because if I'm doing a 9 to 5, I am going to be going balls out anyways.
Yeah. And
You're working extra hours to make money for somebody else because you're not going to get paid for that.
Yeah.
And I think for me too, when it comes to like my own personal workouts, like working out is what helps me feel good, like and allows me to be at my best. If I was working a 9 to 5, I don't know obviously motivation. I don't like to use that word because I feel like anybody can do anything when they're motivated. So when you're not, but like, how much would I really go to the gym after work at that time? One, I hate working out at that time because it's so packed
At night?
at any gym that I've ever been to at that time. But two, it's like I just worked 8 hours. I'd like to like go home for a little bit, and then by the time I get home and I sit on that couch,
Oh,
there's
you're
zero
done.
chance
Done.
that I'm doing shit.
I can't tell you how many times I've like finished up working here. Like I didn't get to work out at here at the facility that day, and I'm like, oh, I have stuff. I'll do a little workout at home, and then I get home, and I sit on the couch, and that's
Connor,
pretty
'cause
much
you
where
have,
my
you
story
have a nice
ends.
setup at home, right? But is it hard to do? Or can you do it?
I don't even know where it is in my house, to be honest. It collects dust for me. And I hate to say it, but it's the God's honest truth.
Do you dry clothes on it like I would?
No, but Chelsea uses it. She gets great use out of it, and I love it. I'm trying to get back into a routine in the morning, but it's just short lived. It's
tough.
hard. It's hard to motivate yourself through because then my hard part is that like it's hard because I find myself with the short windows that I just am in right now. It's that I feel like it's then selfish time. I rather didn't spend it with her and the baby. So I kind of like put myself on the back burner for it. But that's the more time I can spend here, though, I can try to pepper in some different things like clean up the sleds as my workout at the end of the night and put weights away. Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of times on Fridays I'm like, you know what? We got a podcast this afternoon. I'm not gonna get to work out. You know what? I'll work out after work. 6 o'clock comes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
And like I'll go to ABC sometimes, and there was one Friday recently. Pierce and I both worked out afterwards, but we also didn't have to work the next day. So I was like, yeah, I'll work out today.
So Pierce has seen me abandon an after shift workout before.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna do it. I swear.
Not
man.
today.
Dan, I thought you were gonna work. Dan, I thought you were gonna work out.
The truck's already started.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's been
Yeah.
6 minutes. I can't.
Been there,
I can't.
done that. Yeah. Another perk is like any appointments. Sometimes it's easy. Like getting a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment. It's a little bit friendlier. Like if
Yeah.
I'm not coming in till 2 one day or
Right.
something like that, like opens up the morning a little bit more, and you don't have to like schedule it and stuff. Like so, there's definitely perks to it. But
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today.
Yeah, I think that's which Paul's helped with the scheduling. But yeah, just making this a real job. You can live your life. You are working, and of course it's a small business, so you're gonna grind. You're gonna be thinking about it outside of work. You're gonna put in extra hours, but like that's what we signed up for.
It's funny the way you say making it a real job. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like early on, and I don't get this as much now because I think people understand like a little bit more like what we've done. But people are like, oh, that's what you do all the time?
Well, I get that sometimes still.
I still do, not as often. But like before, it was like, oh, so what? That's what you do for a job? And I'm like, yeah, pays all the bills.
yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, but
Most of
even
them.
from a structuring that standpoint, the biggest thing, which I'm sure some people still don't do, is put people on reoccurring payments, monthly subscriptions. That's what gives us all those things that we just said. And of course, we want people showing up all the time as much as possible.
Yep.
If they drop below twice a week for a few weeks, you're probably going to lose them, so you don't want that. But yeah, to just give you that stability and that structure, and you can say, hey, in 10 months from now, I have a chance to collect this much money.
Right, and that's one of the differences with here too. Is like the twice a week thing is definitely like that standard of we know this person is going to probably be with us for a long time.
What's the magic number? This might be like a Rigsby or a plumber thing. The magic number for people attending a gym, they have to be here for X amount of months for you to have them for life.
Hello, Dom.
Hi, Dom.
Hello, Dom. Yeah, what's that number? X amount of months you to have a chance for them for life. If they're below that, chances are not. Like you got to clear this mark, and you go, okay, I got
this
a
a
good
trivia
chance for this
question?
person. Yeah, it's yeah.
I mean, my guess would be 3 because that was the contract length of the New York Sports Club, but I don't have
Higher.
We talked about that. I think we talked about this. Oh no,
we're gonna lose trivia now because of Dan.
It's longer than you think.
Is it 12 months? Is it a full year?
36.
Is it? Wow.
Oh, you know what? We did talk. We have talked about
36.
this.
If you can
We
get
have.
somebody here 36 months,
Yeah,
chances
now I
are
remember.
you're keeping them.
Yeah.
Anywhere before that,
It's a long time.
it could still be in limbo.
Yeah.
Which is way longer than I thought.
a
when I
lot
read
longer
that.
than I
Basically,
thought.
we need to get someone to the 250 board. Is what you're telling me.
Interesting. Could that be? Yeah,
Be
around
int-
there.
It'd be interesting to check out.
What your retention is at the 250. I mean,
That's-
yeah, because our
yeah.
retention definitely isn't tremendous at the 100. There's so many 100s, but not a lot of 250, not as many 250s.
Well, and
you-
I think we
that-
lose a lot of the high school kids
Yeah.
who graduate or
Right.
college kids who graduate who get to those boards and then they stop.
But it'd be interesting for us to go into the lead chart after, and you can look, right? Because we have a lead chart. We track everything. I think that's a big thing too. We track everything. I think what's big too is the more you're here as a coach, the more we let you in on the financials. Like we've done that with Pierce, and I feel like that's huge. If you have an understanding as an employee about what finances look like, what the business needs to cover a month, what does that look like when you're covering for a month? What does it look like when you're profiting X percent? What does it look like when you're profiting this percent? So you get a real feel of just what the kind of, you can get a feel for where your business is at. It's like a pulse. You're just keeping your hand on that pulse of the business. Do you feel like that's been helpful, Pierce, as we've kind of let you into that over time?
It lets me mold what I want, like, to produce for myself, and then also produce for the business too. Like being able to go in the chart and say, this is where we're at. Then even like this month, like I've gotten better at planning at, do I have any flips this month? Am I, if this X amount of person comes in this X amount of time, is this going to hit before this month, after this month? So like it's just organization. It's just
Yeah.
allowed me to really, it's like a structure to being able to handle my shit pretty much and kind of be a little more proactive about it too. So I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, that's big. But yeah, tracking everything. Like we got a lead chart where you can see if you're a lead, if you did a strategy, if you then sign up for the trial, if you then sign up for a membership, how many months you've been here, if you stopped your membership, at what month did you stop your membership. But it's powerful. It's just kind of like this pulse. Where are things at right now with the business, and where is each individual person at for us to make sure they are happy, getting what they want, and they're going to keep paying us.
And it does make a guess. Like sometimes you can get to a guess period of why is this happening, why is this not. It's like you can go back and just maybe this is an area, maybe this is another area. It makes it a lot more. And just going back to simple, it simplifies it. So
Yeah, because then you can look at your funnel. Like, well, we didn't do great last month. Well, look at our leads. We barely had any. And that's usually when we have an issue, that's what it is. Because our conversion rate, once we get a lead and once we get them to do a strategy, then it's like pretty much a lock. They're doing trial. Pretty much a lock. They're going to sign up for some type of membership after. But
yeah,
it's
and
like,
the less guesswork, it's easier to take action on it. Like
Yeah.
the less time we have guessing, the more time we have to take action on something that might be lacking. So I think it's huge.
yeah, I think that's big. Yeah, I don't know where I got like that scorecard from or doing the lead chart. Yeah, but to me, that's been so helpful. Every Friday morning when I get here, open the gym early. I open on Fridays. I'll get here at 5, give me an hour to get stuff done. But every Friday morning within that hour, 5 to 6, I'm pulling up lead chart. I'm pulling up our scorecard, which has all our KPIs, which has leads, has strategies, has trials, has people that left the gym, has weekly revenue, has pitching revenue, has personal training revenue, has commissions. And I'm just looking through what looks good, what doesn't look good. Okay, let's move on to next week and let's adjust and try to feed the areas that are lagging a little bit.
Yeah,
So-
and that's again goes back to systems make everything easier and work more efficiently, right? If you didn't have that system in place, just imagine how much scrambling you'd be doing, especially like with like the obviously anxiety that you like, how much you would be like just scrambling in your brain, like, oh, we gotta do we have to work on this? Do we have to work on that?
The thing is, people are probably like that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are. But having, like you said, mentors like you've had and whatnot, or people in your corner that you can go to and be like, all right, how can I make this more efficient is,
Right.
is huge and whatnot. So, but you got to live and learn. Like there's mistakes we've made here and that we'll continue to make, but then you make those mistakes and you
What-
learn from them.
What have been the biggest things for you guys? Like for me, I'm always thinking like I want this business to grow, but I want my personal goals and my personal life to grow at the same time. And I guess I'm different because for me, right, it's like when I'm making more money, the business is making more money. That's how I get a lot of mine. But for you guys, doing the extra services helps you a ton. How have you viewed like letting it flow together? Like, let me build and reach the goals that I want, but also at the same time, I'm pushing the business in the right direction. I feel like we're all there, and Connor, we're starting to talk about that more. yeah, I guess like how have you viewed that, Dan, over time?
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me in the first, like, I don't know, maybe the first year of us being open and we were really just grinding like crazy, like, I definitely at some point would have been like, I don't know if I'll ever not be able to be here for 12 hours a day.
I think
and I
that-
didn't know when or if there was ever an end to that. And that was certainly challenging mentally, just being like, okay, like, you know, at the time I was 28, turned 20, like 29 in the first year. Like, how long can I do this and then still be able to, the way we were doing it, and then feel good about being like, hey, Jen, let's have a baby, right? So then as we've grown, hi, Lisa. Hi. And then as we've grown, you can come in. It's cold out there.
Come on in, Lisa.
And then as we've grown and I've seen the way the business has grown, the way our employees have grown, you know, whatever, it became more realistic that like I don't have to always be here 80 hours a week at some point, and I can start, you know, I can start a family, and then from there as we've grown even more, it's like, all right, now if I'm here 45, I don't know, like scheduled for 35, here 45 hours, you know, what can I do to help the business grow, but also like as a coach and part owner, how can I help myself down the road too?
Right.
From like a how often I hear standpoint, what is my income going to look like in 5 years? What's the gym going to look like in 5 years? You know, now those are the kind of things that I kind of think about the most, and we kind of see those things as the months and years go on, they start to become more clear to me.
Yeah. Yeah, more clear, more space for warming up to make the flow better. More Connor,
Like,
because
yeah,
I
what-
like to see Connor.
Like what needs to happen for those things, those visions to like happen? And yes,
Right.
it's more space. It's you know, more Connor. You know, and then how long is it here? I don't know. How long
Right.
is it in this building? And until like when do we? You know, am I still here coaching full time when that happens? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot of the similar thoughts as far as like, okay, you know, 5 years from now, where are we going to be? Who's going to be working here? Right?
Yeah.
Are we going to be in this location? Are we going to have our own space? Like, what makes the most sense for us? And like, obviously right now, you know, we've talked like, you know, getting our own building and own spaces is down much further down the line just because the cost of everything. But and ideally you just want to get more people in the door. But like, that's what you know, when it comes to like offering those extra services and fitting it into the work-life balance and everything like that, like the extra services, one, again, help provide more income for me, so that way outside of work I can enjoy certain things more. But then two, like how can that service help generate more income for the gym in that 10-week period that my speed camp is, but then also how can that help generate recurring income down the line? Like will any of those kids that maybe I have a couple kids that aren't part of the gym right now, I think all of the kids that are in our speed camp work out here, but if I get 3 kids that aren't, can I get at least one of them to be like an actual member and do some weight training here?
Right.
So like when I'm thinking about the speed agility camp, that's what I'm thinking about, is like, okay, can I get kids to get their friends to come to at least the speed agility camp, get my face in front of them, and then from there, can I get them in the door to do some weight training too?
Yeah. Yeah, that's big. Yeah, it's just communication. I think that's been the biggest thing. And just, yeah, I'll be on the same page with like growth and what's it look like and what's that feel like. Yeah. So no, I appreciate this, boys. A good part 2.
You know, we part 2, take 4, 3.
Take 3, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Take 3. Well, new setup. So
New setup.
You know, I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff, and like, you know, kind of where the business is going, the gym's going. And I do enjoy talking about that stuff. But we have to do one where I can drink a few Coors Lights.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
Yeah, we'll have to do,
Well, I technically could do them now, but then I'd have to leave.
well, we got to do we got to do one at the
We're gonna
Carriage
do one at
House.
the-
rock and roll. I'm
Where's
ready to
this
roll
is the preview for the
Is the next one going to be
for the
Carriage
next
House?
one.
We can do it whenever we want.
Okay.
Let's make it happen.
I'll see you tonight.
Well,
Bring your dates. Bring your dates.
yeah, hey,
Perfect.
happy Valentine's Day, and we'll see everybody at the Carriage House.